In this video, we're going to talk about sketching, prototyping, and critique, starting with the sketching and prototyping. And then for critique, we're going to talk about the critical response process. That's something created by Liz Lerman. And I think it's a particularly good way of having generative critique that works well with a design process. So, starting with review here, remember we talked about design as a way to do or make something, and then we learn from what we did or made. We don't know what we're going to make until we make it. We have to step into that uncertainty and complexity and unknown. And the only way to do it is just to do it. And then after you do it, you can look at what you did and learn from it. We can think of it as acting and then reflecting. Acting is like the sketching or prototyping, and reflecting is like our critique. And each of them lead back into the others. So, sketching and prototyping. Then I wrote prototyping and sketching. Prototyping and sketching are very, very closely related. I sometimes use them interchangeably, but we'll talk about the difference slightly here. But first, from Lee Shulman, sometimes you think in order to act, and sometimes you act in order to think. What we're talking about here a lot is the acting in order to thinking. Since you don't know what you're going to make yet, sometimes you just have to start doing something, acting, and that helps you think through it. And the first step to that is often what Bill Buxton here calls a sketch. Says the sketch's value lies not in the artifact of the sketch itself, but its ability to provide a catalyst to the desired and appropriate behaviors, conversations, and interactions. So you're creating something that is helping you think, and that it's helping you start having conversations around your ideas. You can also share it with other people. Again, that critique process of getting feedback from others. But it's not the artifact itself. It's how it's helping you think and explore an idea. Buxton made a list of what sketches are, and this is just some of the things on his list. That they're quick, timely. You don't wait to do it. You just do it right away. They're cheap. You make them disposable so that you don't feel so bad when you start over. You do a lot of them. You can make them ambiguous. They don't have to be clear. And ambiguity gives us space for maybe making more changes as we look at it. And they're to suggest and explore, not confirm. And in instructional design, a lot of times the sketching it can be drawing, it can be outlining something, it can be listing words, it can be drawing boxes and arrows and writing goals. It really can be anything that's helping you think. This is how Buxton represents the transition from sketching to prototyping. It's not really that important. The main thing is just to think that we're a little bit more open-ended when we're sketching, and then we get to be more detailed when we get to prototyping. Something maybe a little more detailed that is a little bit more specific that we can use to maybe even get usability from others and such. But it's not a big deal. So there's different ways to prototype. This is from the Design for Learning book about prototyping. It includes sketching as part of that. Also talks about storyboarding, where you can actually write out, like, what is this going to look like? What would it look like if someone used this app? What problem would it be solving? Even if you're not actually creating a comic or anything, it helps you think about how someone's going to use something. And then this Wizard of Oz, they use this Finding Nemo at Disneyland. If you've ever been to it, it looks like the turtle's talking to you, where really there's someone behind that is making the turtle talk. So you can do things like that. Like if you need to create some type of app, you can create a PowerPoint that when they click on a button, it links to another slide, which is where that button would go to. That's kind of called a Wizard of Oz, because you're not actually enacting all the specific technology in it. You're kind of mocking it up and doing it fake, just to explore it and see how it works. Once you get a prototype, what do you do with it? You use it for yourself for reflection and interaction. You can share it with peers and even with stakeholders. You can share it with users and see how they respond to it. And when you get to more detailed prototypes, you can actually use it to look at interaction analysis and look at what people try to do when they look at your screen or your device and what actions they take. Okay? And all of these things are part of this reflect when we're critiquing and reflecting, which then we use to go back and refine our design. We're going to talk specifically about the critical response process. This was designed by Liz Lerman. She's actually a choreographer, but she has used this process to help critique art a lot, dance, other forms. She's also used it for community dialogue type situations. And there are certain values of the critical response process that are important. The first is dialogue. We're actually going to learn and discover through conversing with each other. So instead of just looking at someone's thing and just telling them what's wrong, we're having a conversation around a sketch or a prototype or an idea. And that's how we're going to learn and discover, is through the actual dialogue. Another is inquiry. We develop ideas even if we're just trying to articulate a question. That will help us come up with an idea. We don't even have to have an answer to a question. And so a lot of critical response process is actually asking questions to keep that ambiguity, that openness, and that discovery. And the last is discovery. The critique process, it's about learning. It's both for the artist and for the respondent. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go into these steps in detail here because you have other resources and videos to look at them. But briefly, in critical response process, it starts with statements of meaning. And those are just statements that say what's meaningful or interesting or curious. It's not good or bad. It just gets you to start having a discussion about something. Then the artist or the creator or the designer asks questions. The respondents ask neutral questions because they're not trying to critique. They're trying to continue the conversation and think through something. And finally, at the very end, you can maybe express opinions about something. Okay, so look at the other resources we have for critical response process to learn more about these steps. But ultimately, it's about continuing that cycle of looking at a sketch or a prototype, having conversations around that to then further improve it. All right, takeaways from this video. Design, it's a cycle of action and reflection. Action can include prototyping and sketching, and reflection can include critique processes. Critique can support idea generation and understanding. It's not just about identifying what's wrong. Right, thanks for watching.